She is passionate. What evil? What killer?
Mom! My baby!
Like you meet Sarah, Mom? Mama, how do you even know Sarah was coming?
My mother knows everything. Really weird around your mom. Did you see the way she looked at me? I was real scared. I feel like she knows everything that goes on inside of my head. And
How long have you known Sarah? I want you to be careful. Oh, there's something very strange about Sarah.
What's the matter? What the hell is going on around here? Now tell me.
who are you? What do you want here? Don't dare touch my kids. My time isn't over. Get out of here. Leave us alone.
Mama, Paul's lying on the porch dead. You gotta tell us what's going on here, Mama. We're all gonna die if you don't tell us what's happening here.
You stop the maniac. Kathy, open the door.
Burn it. Burn it. Get it out of here. Burn it quickly.
Kathy, what's the matter?
Mama's right. Burn it. It's evil. No, you can't destroy me.
Hi, this is Larry Zerner from Friday the 13th, Part 3, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to The Hysteria Continues, episode 173. And this time we're in for something very, very strange. So Erik's pick of Bloodbeat, the very strange 1983 movie with a synopsis that sells itself. So we will be coming on to that, as it were, and it's a film where, well, there's a lot of, how can I put it, self-pleasuring going on and causing all sorts of mayhem a little bit later. But before we do, let's catch up with our fearless podcasters. So, Erik, are you pleased with yourself for choosing Bloodbeat?
Yes.
That's very apt. Well, let's just hope you don't. I can imagine what would happen. The ghost of Bob Hoskins would appear somewhere in Dublin and glow and bump people off.
With his big sword.
With his big sword. So you be careful. Careful what you wish for. Keep your fingers, keep your hands above the covers.
Okay. If I must.
And Joseph, are you excited to be talking about Bloodbeat?
Bloodbeat. Everything is not right. Oh no!
Did you say Bloodbeat?
Yes.
I picked Blood Beach. Why? Which film have you guys been watching?
Oh, is Blood Beach a slasher?
Yeah, Erik. But it's very funny you picked Blood Beach because you've done the intro for Bloodbeat.
Oh yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
Trapped by your own.
That joke. Yeah, that hoist by your own petard.
Exactly. So, Nathan, how are you doing?
I'm doing very, very well.
Great. And you survived.
It's not Thanksgiving or Christmas yet. Because
we can
Christmas
mention
is
this,
time for
by
Blood.
the way. Yeah. Yeah, we can mention this, by the way, because it's kind of common knowledge, but we're all kind of excited because we just did a fantastic commentary for Cutting Class for Vinegar Syndrome.
With Brad Pitt.
With Brad Pitt. Well, he didn't sit in on the commentary, but we did talk about him a bit.
Are you sure he wasn't just sitting there? He just didn't talk?
It could be like his cameo in Deadpool 2, couldn't it?
Yeah.
If you've seen Deadpool 2. But anyway, yes, we've just done a Cutting Class commentary for Vinegar Syndrome, and we had a grand old time with that. So that should be a fun one. Well, this before we get on to this, let's have a little chat about what we've been watching recently. So I know we have slightly limited time tonight, so we'll rattle through these. But Erik, how about you? What have you been watching? You saw the... did we talk about this last one? No, I don't think we did. You've seen the new Halloween, haven't you?
I've seen the new Halloween, yes. Jamie Lee Curtis was in town, unbelievably. This type of thing never happens in Dublin, but Jamie Lee Curtis was here as part of her press junket, and there was a preview screening of Halloween in one of the art house cinemas here. Tickets went on sale in the start of September, and I somehow managed to get myself some tickets because it sold out in about 60 seconds. So we got to see New Halloween, which I really enjoyed. First off, the opening credits are done in the same style as the first two Halloween movies, with a new sort of take on the sort of pumpkin motif that appears on the left-hand side of the screen. But the font and the color of the lettering and all that is exactly the same as the original movie and the sequel, which was a lovely throwback. What I will say about what's slightly different with Michael Myers this time is although he's light on his feet, when he attacks, he's quite vicious, and he displays a degree of super strength that makes him more like Jason than the Michael Myers we saw in 1978. That's only a slight problem. I mean, it's not a big problem with the film at all. There's one plot point maybe 2/3 through the movie that I was like, well, that made no sense. But apart from that, I thought the film was really entertaining. Now, the proof of that is that I went into the film and I had no watch on me. I'd forgotten my watch, so I had no concept of how much of the film had elapsed. And it came to the end credits, and I was like, it felt like only 60 minutes had gone at most, and it was 107 minutes had passed. So I'd be very surprised if you guys didn't find it really entertaining. Now, you might find it. I don't know how you if you'd grade it as high as I would. I was really, really entertained by it. It's not overly gory. There's some sequences that are maybe one or two that are quite gory, but you tend to see the aftermath of his murderous mayhem rather than the actual, axes going into heads and all that type of stuff. I suppose the other thing to know going into it is that Laurie Strode is in kind of a dour state for the entire movie. She reminded me a bit of Sydney in Scream, where we meet Sydney and she's suffered this trauma, and so she spends the entire movie kind of like, in a depressed state, which makes probably, her less engaging, I suppose. But the last 20 minutes of the new Halloween are kick-ass, I think is probably the right word. I was really gripped. And as I said, I think I'd be very, very surprised if y'all didn't enjoy it, because.
So it sounds like not exactly a Halloween film, but a fun slasher film.
It's such a throwback because it's not trying to be anything other than a slasher film, which was so refreshing. It's Michael Myers going around killing people, and then eventually, it's him versus Laurie, and. So it's such an old fashioned style. The way the story is constructed in that is, so that was just wonderful to see. There was no trying to do something new or do something different or be meta. So that was great. So I urge you all to see it.
Is it? I've heard that the sequel is already in pre-production. Does it?
Yes. Meep was saying that to me as well.
Yeah. So
wow, I had no idea. I didn't know that.
So does it lend itself to a sequel? Without giving anything away, obviously.
Well, I knew they would do that because they're tracking, like the box office trackers they're estimating a $60 million opening weekend, and I think this is like, maybe $5-10 million film.
Well, Jamie Lee Curtis, she said in the Q&A that she took the salary she got for it was $14,000, which is scale. She didn't take anything more. But she's credited as an executive producer, so she'll probably get like, bonus points or whatever they call it, percentage of the box office. I don't know.
Royalties as well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's a smart move.
Speaking of royalties, somebody has made an actual song of "I Wish I Had You All Alone," which she sings in the first one, and because she was coming on to do a Q&A, I sat through the entire credits at the end of the film, and the credit for that song lists two songwriters along with Jamie Lee Curtis and John Carpenter. So she'll be getting, if that's released as a single and gets lots of radio play, she'll be getting some royalties for that as well.
So I don't really want any spoilers, Eric, but is there a scene in the film where a female character sings "Paul forgot my keys, Louise"?
There is. He's skinny and he's a vegan, but then he gets killed.
Oh, poor Justin. Justin, I would have thought you would have seen enough Halloween movies to know how to survive.
Well, I'm not in this movie, Nathan.
Well, Eric just said you were. He just described you.
My mistake.
Well, that's true, but I didn't know I was in it. Who knows? Well, you know what they do with computer modelling these days. So, well, no, we're all looking forward to that.
About the film is that there is I usually have a sort of a bugbear with kids in slasher movies because they tend to be obnoxious. If you think of the guy from Nightmares on a Damaged Brain and that type of thing. But there's a kid who's sort of been babysat, if that's correct grammar, in this movie, who's really, really funny, very smart, and really, really likable, which is unusual for a film like this.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Erik, what question did you ask of Jamie Lee Curtis?
I didn't get to ask a question because she's very, very, very chatty. So she was chatting away to the compere, and then
didn't she say something about your shirt though?
Oh, she did. She was talking about how she met Christopher Guest, her husband, and she said she was sitting with Deborah Hill, and she opened a copy of Variety or Entertainment Weekly or something, and there was a picture of the three guys from This Is Spinal Tap, and they're all wearing plaid shirts, like that guy over there. And she pointed at me, and I was like, because I was in the front row.
Did you enjoy being fingered by Jamie Lee Curtis?
I certainly did.
I thought you might.
Yeah. So, by the time they got to the Q&A, the audience only got to ask, I think, 3 or 4 questions because she'd give very long, elaborate answers, and then she had to race across town to do a TV appearance later that night as well. So, she was only doing the Q&A for about maybe 35 minutes or 40 minutes or so. But she was really nice, very chatty.
Yeah.
She welled up at one stage, which she's been doing a lot on this publicity junket because she was on BBC Radio 2 that morning and she was almost in tears. And if you look at some of the interviews with her on YouTube, you can see her being moved to tears at certain points.
By what, though? What's she being moved to tears by?
On one of the clips on YouTube, somebody's talking to her about Deborah Hill, who, of course, passed away.
Of course.
13 years ago. Yeah, but she was moved to tears in the Q&A because the interviewer asked her, so we know you as a comedian in Trading Places and as a Scream Queen in Halloween, but how would you describe yourself? And she just was like, oh, nobody's ever asked me that before, and she started to well up.
Wow. I did see, I saw an interview with her.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say very quickly, I saw an interview of her which I thought was really good, where because there's obviously a lot of the mainstream, inverted commas, kind of film press can be quite still sniffy about slasher movies, and certainly a remake or a rehash or whatever you want, a sequel to after many sequels, that kind of thing, and there was an interview with her, and she's sort of saying, well, she said, in slasher movies, I play strong, independent women who fight back. And she said, in my mainstream movies, like A Fish Called Wanda or True Lies, I had to get naked. So she said, people say that, belittle horror movies, slasher movies, but she said, I played strong women in them. In a lot of the movies that were mainstream films, I had to do things like take my top off. So I thought that was quite interesting and astute
because,
from her.
Like you're saying, she was a strong character in Blue Steel as well, and then in True Lies, she had to be saved by a male character. I think that's interesting. You bring that up.
Mm-hmm. I thought it's interesting.
She still fought Tia Carrere in a limo.
Yeah, but one of the things I was going to say is that a lot of people to detract from Jamie Lee Curtis, they always say, she always says she's not going to come back to do another Halloween movie, but here she is cashing another check. And I'm like, so I'm glad she comes back to these Halloween movies. I think she kind of lends them this gravitas, as it were.
Absolutely. Yeah, why not?
It almost seems kind of jaded, to be like, oh, she just cashed another paycheck. I'm like, I'd rather just be thankful that, she still appreciates her horror past.
Well, exactly. It's kind of
like whether you like these movies or not, some people got to eat. Leave them alone.
Well, and also it's kind of like, people, Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans, all these people cashing endless checks for all their superhero movies, aren't they? So,
Did you guys see the news reporter that was making fun of the new Halloween? Was it a news reporter? I can't remember. It's just, I saw it. It looked like a news thing. It was a woman on
Fox News, I think. Yeah,
because she said something like, oh, she's in like Halloween 50. She's like, I wish I was joking, but I'm not. They're making a new one. Like, it's just the idea of going to see this movie so beneath her.
Well, did you see, I think it was Fox News as well, who sort of tried to pull apart Jamie Lee Curtis because they termed anti-gun and she uses guns in the movie. Yes. Which is so ridiculous.
I know. I'm actually shocked, because Robert Englund has said he's against real-life murder, and he's killed people in many Freddy movies. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
True.
Crazy. So, okay, well, Halloween, we will all look forward to seeing it, although I'm not sure when I'm going to get a chance because it depends whether or not it plays in English, because being in a Spanish-speaking country, although my Spanish isn't too bad, I don't think I could follow a whole film, although I'm sure it's probably not, going to be that difficult to follow.
I think it's very straightforward. If you wanted to go along and it's only in Spanish, I'd say go.
So it'd be lots of bastido.
That's Linda Day George, surely.
Bastido, it would be, yes. But yeah, well, thank you.
Say that 3 times really, really slowly.
Yeah. Thank you, Erik. Anything else?
The only other one I watched was Scream for Help, which has yourself and Amanda Reyes on the disc. This is the 1984 Michael Winner movie, which I'd never seen before, and I bought it as a blind buy. Without really knowing what it was about. So I was absolutely gobsmacked by it by the end. It starts off kind of like Hardy or Nancy Drew, I should say, probably. It looks like it's going to be aimed at a younger market, and then it throws in all this violence, including one girl who gets mutilated by a car as she's walking down the street, really, really abruptly. It's a cross kind of between The Stepfather and The Last House on the Left, in that it starts out with a girl trying to prove that her mother's new, I think it's her boyfriend rather than husband, is trying to kill them. But then it turns into a home invasion movie for the second half. And it's not a subtle movie at all. There's no character arc to any of the characters in the film. The main villain, who the stepfather of the piece, starts out as the sort of uber super villain, from the get-go. There's no hiding the fact. There's no subtlety. He is a killer from the start.
That movie is just so crazy. All the over the top sex scenes. I wanted to mention a few months ago, our friend Johnny did an episode of that film on Short Bus Cinema that you should listen to. They basically picked the whole movie apart, and that movie is ripe for that kind of treatment. The kind of MST3K style riff tracks. Because it's just so bonkers.
Yeah. The mother in it, she breaks her leg at one stage and she's in sort of a wheelchair, while her leg is in a cast. She keeps getting knocked out of the wheelchair. She's pushed down the stairs. She's sort of pushed into a chest of drawers at one stage. It's just bonkers, the movie. I would be a fan of Michael Winner stuff because his, when he gets his hands on sort of genre material like this, it comes out as pure entertaining trash. I think you mentioned on the commentary this was made just before he did Death Wish 3, which is probably my favorite of the Death Wish movies, which is really over the top. But the reason I bought it was there was the Justin and Amanda commentary, and I said, that might be fun. And I think it's a Scream Factory, yeah. And I like their sort of line of movies they bring out, so I bought it, and oh my God, it's one of my new all-time favorites, I think.
It's a lot of fun, isn't it? There's a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with Amanda, so if I was going to cheat on you guys, then Amanda's the one to do it with.
It is.
Well, she's the one I cheat on you guys with, at least once a month.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, and apparently you're her favorite.
Yeah, I love Amanda. She's just awesome. Her show, Made for TV Mayhem, I'm a co-host on it, so if you're listening, check it out. We're Made for TV.
Just weren't you saying that when you and Amanda were prepping for the Scream for Help commentary, she was kind of flabbergasted that the four of us don't really, when we do the commentaries that we get chosen for, we don't really have a plan. We just kind of wing it, and she was just kind of flabbergasted by that.
Well, I think she was. She definitely got into the groove, but I think she's quite meticulous. She's an amazing researcher, and so I sort of said, we just talk shit for an hour and a half. Which we do, but hopefully people enjoy it. I mean, we do a lot of research, don't we? When we do sort of dig up, nuggets on the film and stuff. So it's not completely on the fly, but I
think with her, she does all this cross referencing and she probably has Excel charts of everything. She's just so meticulous like that.
Well, she's amazing, and I think we did a very good kind of good cop bad cop kind of thing with the. With the commentary, but yeah, very much enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. So
I've met her,
check that out.
Met her two or three times in person. I really want to see her again.
Yeah,
it's been too long.
Well, we met her. Erik met her in London a couple of years ago, wasn't it? Now,
about 18 months ago.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So fantastic. Well, thank you, Erik. So although we said this is going to be a short show, it doesn't. We're 20 minutes in, so let's see how we go. But Nathan, what have you been watching recently?
Well, the only thing that I've seen recently is I started watching this new anthology show on Netflix called Creeped Out. It's very much I don't know if you guys remember Are You Afraid of the Dark? It came on Nickelodeon like when I was a kid.
I remember that.
It's very much like sort of like a Tales from the Dark Side or Tales from the Crypt, but for kids. Like it's definitely for kids. The stories feel very much like Goosebumps or something.
Okay.
But I loved it. I mean, I've loved all the episodes so far. I mean, some are better than others, of course. I mean, that's just the way it goes. But they're all entertaining, and sometimes they're a bit silly, and sometimes they can even throw in a decent like twist ending. So,
do you think I'd enjoy it?
I think you should give it a shot. Definitely,
yeah, I'm gonna check that out.
But I would say that the very first episode is probably my least favorite so far out of all of them. I liked it, but it's probably my least favorite. So, I mean, I would say that just don't judge it based on the very first pilot episode. Like, at least give it a few before you make a decision. But check it out.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you, Nathan. How about you, Joseph?
I don't think I've seen anything since we last recorded. I've just been so busy.
Okay, well, fair enough. Just rattle through a few things. I've just started watching The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix with the new. I can't remember. Sorry,
is it any good?
Yeah, I've only seen one episode. I watched it today, but I thought it was, it was good. It was kind of different because I loved the Robert Wise, the 1963 version, the black and white version, which I think is kind of really scary movie, and it may even make an appearance in my top 3 scary moments. I don't know yet. But this, and I can't remember his name now. It's the director. He did Mike Flanagan, yes, Oculus, and the other films. There was a really good one he made before that, and I should have written it down. But anyway, it's kind of a slow burn, and it's got a different sort of story. Although it takes elements from the book and the film, but at the moment it's kind of cutting between the future and the past with this family that are staying, living in this kind of really creepy old Gothic mansion, just like the one in the film. And something scary happens, but it keeps on cutting to the future with them now and then flashing back to the past, so you don't quite know what's happened, but something bad's happened. But I think it's going to be really good. It's got good reviews, so I'm going to persevere with that. The other, I saw Malevolence, which is another Netflix original film set in the mid-'80s, I think, about a group of students who pretend to be ghost hunters or pretend to go and get rid of ghosts from people's houses as like a bit of a scam. And they go to an old school where a woman is where there's been some child murders in the early 70s, and she says that it's haunted and she wants to get rid of the ghosts. It's, to be honest, it's nothing great. It was all right. Seen it a million times before, but it did have Celia Imrie in it, which most people listening to this probably haven't heard that name. But if you're familiar with Acorn Antiques, she was Miss Babs. So, do you remember that one from Victoria Wood, Erik?
I don't like Victoria Wood. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So you don't, Acorn Antiques, where they did like it was. I
know of Acorn Antiques.
Yeah,
yes.
But she played Miss Babs, and then she plays a very different character, Miss Babs, in this. So anyway, that was that. And lastly, I did a very bizarre double bill, as it turned out, of 2 Italian gialli. Well, they're kind of gialli, but they're kind of. And one was I hadn't seen before, called Interbang. And apparently Interbang is a symbol which is half question mark and half exclamation point. And it's one of my kind of favorite little very sub genres of bored, beautiful people on yachts in the Mediterranean, lying around sunbathing, wearing fantastic clothes and big sunglasses and very small bikinis, and people being bumped off one by one. So both these movies, it was Interbang and Top Sensation, with the wonderful Edwige Fenech and Rosabella Neri in it, which is very, very incredibly sleazy, and it has the infamous scene of Edwige Fenech being having a goat go down on her. It doesn't really happen, but it's certainly implied that she is pleasured by a goat. So it's probably and then the whole premise of that one is that this strange German woman is trying to get her autistic son laid, and then murders happen. And then the other one, there's a dead body, and people are so jaded and sort of beautiful, they just lie around and sunbathe and just don't bother really about the dead people. So it's kind of it's a very subgenre of Italian movies, but where it's a kind of cynicism at that time, where you have kind of the bourgeoisie, I kind of guess, whatever the Italian version of that would be, where they kind of the audiences would enjoy a bit of Schadenfreude of them being beautiful, but also being shallow and horrible people. So if you're into those kind of movies, then neither of them are like what you'd term an Argento or a Fulci or a Martino type of giallo. But that kind of thing I do, it's just nice watching beautiful people drinking martinis on yachts and then being bumped off one by one. So there was that. And lastly, I was going to say that I'm very excited because we've met some people here who are kind of very into horror movies. So we're having on Halloween, we're going to recreate the Grindhouse double bill of Eyeball and Suspiria on Halloween night. So
oh wow!
So that's going to be.
Can I come over?
Yeah, if you can get over here, then you're more than welcome.
Yeah.
I just thought that would be because they're so different to each other. But it was a classic Grindhouse double bill from back in the day. So I thought we'd recreate that. And so that's my recently seen and my future scene as well.
Do you have your projector set up in the new house?
Well, no, that would be good to do the projector. I'll see if I can. There's not really any space for that. I think we'll just do it on the telly, but that would have been good to do on the projector. But unfortunately, I'll play around with that idea. If I can get a sheet and hang that down, maybe that would give it even more of a Grindhouse feel, wouldn't it? Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I shall report back on that. So that is recently seen. So I guess it's time for a little bit of gusset typing, Erik.
Sarah and her boyfriend Ted have decided to spend Christmas with Ted's mother at her home in rural Wisconsin. However, upon arriving, Sarah begins to feel a strange presence around her, and soon after, a mysterious figure garbed in a samurai outfit begins murdering the townsfolk, eventually setting his sights on Sarah, Ted, and his family. That's the blurb from the back of Bloodbeat on the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray that came out, I think, last year. It goes on to say that Bloodbeat is a supernatural slasher film like no other. This French-US co-production applies an art house aesthetic to its American regional cinema stylings, resulting in a dreamy and haunting atmosphere to complement the bloodletting and outrageous twists. And wow, what an odd one this is indeed. It treads a very fine line between trash and art house, and I can't really tell which side of the line it eventually lands on. The film starts off in kind of as linear a fashion as this film gets. There's a couple in rural Wisconsin. They're visited by the woman's grown children, one of whom, Ted, arrives with his new girlfriend, Sarah. And when Sarah and the matriarch of the family, Kathy, when they meet, something weird happens between the two. There's some kind of ESP going on. They both feel uneasy. They seem to have this psychic link. Neither of them like each other, and they feel suspicious of each other. Sarah freaks out when she's dragged on a hunting trip with the rest of the family, and she's kind of repulsed by their laid-back attitude to stalking deer in the forest. So in the middle of the night, she finds a trunk in her bedroom which has a samurai outfit and a giant sword. And this is when the madness really begins to happen, because we get lo-fi optical effects, kind of like what we see in something like Boarding House. They're used to depict sort of this mystical glow around the samurai warrior. If for people in the UK and Ireland, if you remember the old Ready Brek adverts from the 70s and 80s, where the person used to have a glow around them after they've eaten their bowl of Ready Brek in the morning, that's kind of what it's like. And it's, as I said, it's quite sort of low rent, the optical effects. And I'm never 100% sure if the bean flicking is actually causing the demon to appear, or if it's the other way around, if the demon is making her, reach downstairs. But it may have nothing to do with it. I don't know. I mean, Justin, you comment a lot about this being sort of how do you the gusset typing? is what makes the samurai warrior sort of manifest himself. But I think that only happens once in the film. Am I mistaken?
Well, doesn't she have sex later in the film as well?
But that's not gossip typing.
No. Well, I said gossip typing. I think it's Joe Brand came up with that term. It wasn't me.
Yeah. She also came up with the term Kit Kat Shuffle as well.
Yes.
So, I mean, around the halfway point of the film, the narrative just kind of falls apart and it becomes increasingly surreal. And there's lots of early 80s laser sound effects, which you heard in maybe the montage at the top of the podcast. There's lots of poltergeist activity, and there's an extended sequence where Gary gets attacked by the contents of the pantry, and we see sort of cans of various early 1980s foodstuffs flying across the room. The warrior then goes on a killing spree, killing off lots of peripheral characters, like Uncle Pete has his throat slit after he's involved in a car crash, which we don't see. We never see how he ends up in the ditch with the car like that. There's an obnoxious redneck who likes to drink powdered orange juice. Who remembers that? I used to drink powdered orange juice when I was growing up in the late 70s, early 80s.
I remember Tang. That was powdered orange juice.
I don't know. Is it still something you can get? I don't know. I think it's
Tang. I don't think you can. Well, you might. I don't know.
I think we had one called Appeal. It was called, and it was a powdered orange drink. So the gore, there's gore in it. I mean, the effects are quite crude and they're brief, but it's fairly effective for something, of this ilk. What happens throughout the film is that the director sort of, I think, expects the audience to be able to leap from point A to point F without sort of any explanation of what happens in between. I'm not entirely sure if he's successful, but I do love the dreamy atmosphere of the film. I've spoken before about why I like something like Skullduggery, even though it's a bad film. It has that kind of dreamy atmosphere that I like. And same with, dare I mention, 1981 Scream. Am I allowed to say that? Or will I be blocked?
Not by us.
Not by me.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I just can't decipher whether the film is art house or trash. The film seems to have a lot going on under its surface. We really could do with Amanda Reyes, speaking of the lovely Amanda, we could really do with her sort of film studies degree mentality to analyze this film, because I don't think I can do it justice. But, I've looked into the background of the director, and he was only 20 or 20, possibly 21 when he made this film, and his interests lay in Marvel Comics and science fiction. So it makes me think that possibly its art house vibe may be accidental. I'm not 100% sure. But, you don't have to be able to read into the film to enjoy it. I think it's so offbeat that for me, it's very, very, very entertaining. It's not the boring kind of offbeat. It's intriguing. This is the same reason why I thought Boarding House was a lot of fun to watch, because it has that same vibe, I think, as Bloodbeat. Bloodbeat probably has higher production values, but so it's a thumbs up from me for Bloodbeat, which means it can only mean one thing. It's our feature that I like to call
Y'all's turn.
That's right, it's y'all's turn. And first on y'all's turn tonight is Joseph Henson.
I guess I'd call Bloodbeat a cinematic metaphor for sexual repression, though I think at the end of the day, I'd rather just call it bonkers. From the outset, things seem off with this sort of this bombastic up-tempo classical score. Even during the most mundane scenes that has that score, Helen Benton playing Kathy. Well, this is her only role, and I see two reasons why. The first, I'll refrain from mentioning because, hey, I'm no Adonis myself. But the second, and probably the most damning, is, let's say, her performance. She's constantly got this look of worry on her face, or kind of the look of a woman who just took a 5-second inhale of a cat turd. The crux of this movie, is her unease with Sarah, who seems to be kind of channeling, samurai warriors when she finally, achieves orgasmic climax. It's just, Bloodbeat is so weird, and what makes it even weirder is that it takes itself, it takes its ludicrous premise deadly serious. It never once stops for a wink or a chuckle. It plays it as straight as an arrow. It feels like an art house director tried.
Did you say wink?
Sorry?
You said wink. Oh, sorry.
Wink or a chuckle. Yeah. Anyway, it just feels like. No, you guys are crazy. It just feels like an art house director. He tried to, excuse me. He tried to shoehorn kind of sort of like drug infused sensibilities into a typical horror film. And the end result is just bizarre. I mean, it's not a good movie, but it has that kind of, I guess I call it a regional charm. Alongside its its weird premise. That kind of makes it an oddity worth seeing at least once, I'd say. I'm not sure I have the desire to ever go back and watch it again, but I do recommend it if you are looking to kind of scrape the floor with your jaw, at least. Thumbs up for me as well.
Oh, excellent. Okay. And as for Helen Benton, I thought she looked kind of like Karen O from the Yeah Yeah Yeahs.
She kind of reminded me of Olive Oil.
That's true.
The woman who's in The Shining. Her name's on the tip of my tongue.
Shelley Duvall.
Yeah, Shelley Duvall. Yeah.
Okay, well, next up on...
Yeah, it's time!
It's Nathan Johnson.
Oh, thank you. Justin has a line in his review that really does a good job of summing up kind of how I feel about it. And he says it's an interesting concept to have two people with previously benign psychic abilities meet, and the meeting causes a catastrophic chain reaction. But it eventually collapses under the weight of its own absurdity. And I kind of have to agree with him on that. Now, that's not a bad thing for me, because I love my absurd movies. But I think the idea, I've never seen a movie quite like Bloodbeat, and I don't think that there is another movie quite like this one. It's a very odd and strange film. Like Erik said, I feel like I'm watching someone's dream. More so than like a linear movie where the plot's very linear. It's not in this movie. It's all over the place. It's completely insane. The ending especially just goes, completely crazy, especially the scene where Justin put in his body count that a female dies from oatmeal on her face, which I absolutely love. That's what you think she died from, Justin.
Well, it's true. It could be deadly.
Oatmeal is deadly.
Allergy to oats.
Yeah, it's got to be it. It's funny, though, for this to be set around Christmas, I don't get a very big Christmas vibe from this movie.
It's the worst Christmas ever, isn't it?
No, I don't either. This would definitely not be on my Christmas watch list.
Yeah, because I could see this, Christmas really doesn't have anything to do with the storyline. I think maybe it was just the excuse given for them all to get together, but that's as far as they go with it being Christmas time. But overall, I love the movie. It just been a couple years since I first seen it. I hadn't seen it for a very long time, and finally I decided to give it a watch, and I was like, well, this movie is just as completely insane as everybody said it was. But with that being said, I give it thumbs up because I really, really liked it.
Excellent. Well, I think I saw it for the first time possibly after we started the podcast, because I think, Justin, did you have this in your top 3 WTF moments in our very first episode, or am I mistaken?
It could. I can't remember, but I imagine it's very likely.
Okay, well,
it's y'all's turn.
It's y'all's turn now.
Well, I still think it's still everything I said about the film kind of holds true, because it is a very odd movie, and I was watching it today and thinking, back in the halcyon days of video store, rentals, and when we were renting things like American Werewolf in London and Friday the 13th, that if you also then accidentally rented Bloodbeat and took it home, you'd be very, very perplexed. And then certainly 14 or 15-year-old me, I remember hating Hysteria because it was, over my head. I would have been completely flummoxed with this. But I appreciate it. It's a film that I think is unique. It's this bizarre kind of fish out of water thing of quite what inspired, and maybe Erik, I don't know if you've got the Vinegar Syndrome disc, and whether or not it sheds any light on why a 21-year-old Frenchman would go to Wisconsin and make a kind of art house slasher movie, or even not an art house, like you say. I think it's perfectly plausible that was completely unintended. It was, because one of the things, without wanted to take away, lots of background. One of the things I saw was he didn't realize he was shooting it in 4:3, like full screen for 15 days. And you're thinking, well, if that was the case, then maybe he wasn't a particularly accomplished filmmaker at that point. So it's just very odd. The whole thing is strange. It fits in with the whole slasher movie thing. The thing that actually struck me this time, it's never struck me before, which is surprising, I kind of guess, is with the whole samurai thing, is there was a scene when they're all riding on the horses towards the camera that very much struck me of the kind of old samurai movies. I think it was, which one was it? I've got it written down here. I think it's the Seven Samurai, which is a Kurosawa film from the mid-50s. It was remade in the United States, The Magnificent Seven. So it's almost this whole weird thing that you've got like this Japanese stuff, and then you've got the Westerns made out of Japanese films and turned on its head, made by a Frenchman. It's just all crazy, it's all completely bonkers. It also struck me, especially this time, was another kind of fish out of water slash movie, which was Uli Lommel's The Boogeyman, and obviously The Bogeyman. And he was a German director who'd made art house films in Germany before coming to the United States to make horror movies. And it seemed I wouldn't be at all surprised if the director of Bloodbeat had seen the Bogeyman. Or The Boogeyman, especially it seemed to be cut from the same cloth, but he was almost trying to outdo it. So, yeah, it's full of so many strange things. You've got like nobody, everyone acts weirdly, don't they? Yeah, it's an odd movie. It has like a European sensibility, but then when you've got this kind of Wisconsin cast of mostly unknowns, because most of them didn't really go on to do much else, it gives it this kind of otherworldly feel, and the same way we've talked about films like Lucio Fulci's, the zombie trilogy, and certainly films like The Beyond, where they're completely European films but are made in the United States with an American backdrop, but everything about them is Italian, and it gives this kind of weird dreamlike feel to it. So you add that layer onto Bloodbeat as well, and then you've got all this kind of metaphysical kind of mumbo jumbo and doesn't make any sense kind of thing. It really lends itself to a completely unique take on the subgenre, and there's nothing quite like it. So by that alone, I definitely recommend you watching it. It's just as long as you know what you're in for, which is bizarrely sections of it are complete and utter. You could be in any slasher movie from the early 80s. There's the home invasion scene with the older couple being killed and the men around the campfire being off by this samurai. It could be out of any slasher movie, but then surrounded by everything else. It's fascinating. I'd love to. I haven't got the Vinegar Syndrome disc, but it'd be interesting. I don't know if you had a chance to delve into some of the extras on there, Erik, for background.
I did.
We were asked to do a commentary on that. We just didn't have the time for it.
All right, don't remember that. There is a commentary on it, but it's with the director, Fabrice Zaffiratos. It's in French, so they have a subtitle track on it. And then there's a video interview with him as well, and with the cinematographer. And that's really all the special features there is. But what he does say is that he was 20 or 21, and this was his first film. He said that everyone on the creative side of the film was high whilst making the film.
Well, there's a surprise.
Yeah, duh. His father is a co-producer on the film. He helped finance it. As I said, shot in a farmhouse in Wisconsin. They chose Wisconsin because they wanted a snowy backdrop. They were filming it in February and were expecting snow, but didn't get it. So it was supposed to be a snowbound horror, along the lines of Blood Tracks or Iced or whatever. But unfortunately, the Mother Nature didn't play ball with them, I'm afraid. And this will surprise you, Joseph, but the actors who played Kathy and Gary were not professionals.
Oh yeah, I wasn't under that impression that they were.
Helen Benton, actually, who plays Kathy, she was the daughter of a big U.S. senator called William Benton, and this is her only film role. The original idea was to have a killer with just a killer with a sword. The samurai idea just came about because the director spotted a samurai costume for sale in an antique shop in Chicago and decided it would be good to use in the movie. He says that he sort of gives us, he doesn't want to give away an explanation of the film, but he sort of lets slip that he thinks that Helen's ancestors once killed a samurai, hence the revenge aspect. Again, there's lots of different ways you can interpret the film. He says he's not a horror fan. As I said, his background is more in sci-fi, which is why the film has lots of sort of unexplained light effects and red light strobing from people's hands and stuff. And he says the supernatural powers that the characters display in sort of the final half hour of the film were inspired by the Force in Star Wars, which was one of his favorite movies. There was one funny bit, I sent you a screen grab of this during the week, guys, where he says that the farmhouse that they used to film in is now owned by a couple of goths. So Susie and Budgie are living there or something. Oh, they're not married anymore, are they? No, Susie's a lesbian now, is she? Yeah.
Well, allegedly.
Sorry?
Allegedly.
Okay, sorry, allegedly. Oops. He was saying he found it funny because being from France, he wasn't used to this type of lifestyle. But when he was staying in that house for filming, the son of the people who owned the house turned 16, and as a birthday present, he got a full rifle, which he thought was absurd to be giving a 16-year-old as a birthday present. All the post-production was done in France. He admits that it's not a very well-written film, and he says that they wrote 4 or 5 different endings, and they chose the most coherent one. So if that's the most coherent ending, you imagine what the other 3 or 4 were like. It was the director himself, Fabrice, plays the samurai warrior in the film. And I think that's all the background I gleaned from the Blu-ray. Does anyone have any other tidbits to add?
No.
Well,
one film that, well, a couple of other bits. One film that I've not seen it. I don't know if anyone else has seen it, because I did have a Betamax video of this way back in the day. I bought a boot fair or somewhere and it never played. Was The House Where Evil Dwells from 1982 with Doug McClure and Susan George. Again, about a samurai haunting a house that was made the year before this. So I did wonder if that might have been an influence. Has anyone seen The House Where Evil Dwells?
A long time ago. I can't remember much about it. But I think Bloodbeat is 1982 as well, rather than 83.
Is it? Okay. Because I've seen it. It's down as 83 on... I thought it was down as 83 on IMDb, but it's probably coincidental. The other thing that sort of tickled me a bit was Terry Brown, who played the lover, I guess, rather than the father of the painter who likes painting what looks like minstrel paintings to Gregorian chants. Is that he went on to be in a film called My Samurai in 1992. Which I thought was quite funny. And he was also in Copycat and a terrible, horrific horror movie called The Princess Diaries. The film got a release in the UK, and I used to have, before I sold most of my video collection, I used to have this, and it was on a label called Replay, and it was released in the UK in February of 1983, which was 2 years before it got a video release in the United States on the Trans World Entertainment label. So that's kind of pretty much everything that I've got, really. Apart from, I did like Dolly's headband at the beginning of the film. I thought that was very early 80s.
That draped itself across the Monopoly board.
Yes.
That was
it's like an unquantifiable, if that's the right term, movie, isn't it? You can't really pigeonhole it. It doesn't surprise me that they were all off their faces and when they were making it, certainly the people behind the camera.
This film definitely dances to its own tune.
Well, it does. There's nothing quite like it, and I think it's strange. I mean, I wonder what it would have been like if they'd actually shot it in snow. It would have added something else. But as it is, it's kind of it's almost frigid, isn't it? It's so it just like it looks cold, but it hasn't got that kind of slightly romantic look of like a snowy kind of wonderland. It's everything just looks cold and dead, which I suppose kind of suits it quite well for the film. But that was a good choice.
Yeah, one thing I was wondering is there possibly a nature taking revenge aspect in this film at all? Because I'm just wondering, because when we meet Sarah first, she refuses to shake Gary's hand because he's got the blood of the deer on his hand. And then when she goes hunting with them, she's repulsed by it. And then all the people who are involved in the hunting start being killed-ish. So I'm just wondering if that had any bearing on the samurai appearing. Or is it just that she gusset types? Is that the?
I think her sexual awakening or her orgasms are so powerful that it just channels murderous samurais. I don't know. That's what I got. That's what I've been from this fucking weird film.
It's very strange, isn't it? Because the mother, she says that I love you to her children. I love you more than anything. I'll do anything for you. But she doesn't seem to appear to do. As soon as they turn up, she's they're creeped out by Ted's girlfriend, and is just locks herself away in her room and paints strange abstract paintings, isn't she, the whole time? It's not, I wouldn't say it's the best Christmas ever.
No, playing Monopoly underneath a sparsely decorated Christmas tree. Yeah. So but Bloodbeat is in a class of its own. There's nothing quite like it. So if you have a taste for the weird, and certainly they, as far as the subgenre goes, there aren't much. There are very few weirder than this. There's a few out there. I'm trying to think of anything quite as strange, but there are some odd films out there. But this really takes a biscuit. So
I'd say the Doris Wishman film. What was it called again?
Well, Night to Dismember.
Yeah, that one's a lot like this film, in my opinion.
I still like to see the new version of that, the one that we talked about, didn't we? When they found the original.
I watched some of it. It's even worse, I think.
It's crazy stuff.
Do you remember when we covered A Night to Dismember, Justin, that you described it as being almost art house as well?
Yes.
In the fact that it's so haphazard.
Yeah. Well,
sometimes I think in that case it's definitely accidentally art house.
Yeah. Whereas I think it probably, at the time, because there was, when I was at school, there were, boys who were into kind of prog rock and, that all the, even though it was quite late on, it wasn't but, they would listen to things and it'd always be like, I'd always see these awful albums with elves and toadstools on the front and things like that. But it'd always be, talking about wizards and sleeves and stuff like that. And,
wizard sleeve?
Well, but I think it was kind of like that whole idea of that's kind of
go back and forth.
You know what a wizard sleeve is slang for, don't you? No. Hello.
No. What is it slang for, Erik?
Slang for lady parts that are quite loose.
Oh, Erik, I think
like
you've brought the podcast down a notch. I think I do apologise to the viewers.
Like cunt flaps.
No, like
roast beef,
a sausage up Oxford Street, that type.
Okay. Well, let's move. Let's draw a veil over that. But yes, I was just going to say that it was kind of somebody who was probably into. I kind of strikes me as the kind of person who might have been into like prog rock kind of thing and wizards and this was but into sci-fi. So it was all those kind of 70s, early 80s sci-fi things where you had, people flying off Uranus and stuff and like all getting mystical. So it was all of that kind of all came together in the time period of the slasher movie. So to add a little bit of a commercial aspect to it. So it's a strange beast to be sure. So what do our dear listeners think about it, Joseph? Do you have some feedback there?
Yes, we do. On Facebook, Michael Meep Ferrari says, I have a lot in common with Bloodbeat. When I masturbate, an ancient Japanese killer samurai also appears. I don't live in Wisconsin, though. That's weird. Jake the Snake McCoy says, surprisingly, a decent watch. Definitely one you need to watch with friends and do your own MST3K with. Steph Rivers says, I recently binged a bunch of Amazon Prime movies, and this one stood out as one of the more cuckoo bananas ones. That anyone decided to connect rural Wisconsin samurai ghosts and orgasms. I think a friend was telling me the director wanted the beats to mimic your heart on amphetamines, which totally makes sense. Gary Yoon says, amateur hour acting, rubbish music, and I felt sorry for the deer, even if it probably ended up getting eaten in real life. Chris Moore says, I'm a big regional horror fan, and I'm not sure what the hell Bloodbeat is really about, but I certainly wasn't bored. It marches to its own drummer and is all the better for it. It's certainly not predictable. The Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray is a godsend. I never knew the movie could look that good. Shane Lambert says, I've been curious about this one. Masturbation leading to a killer samurai? Was this meant as a PSA against wanking that backfired? Definitely plan to check it out someday, LOL. Joe Mandam says, so dull. This is one I want to like desperately. Jeremy Ball says, I didn't see Bloodbeat until 5 or 6 months ago, and I got a big kick out of it. The effects are hokey, but otherwise it's competently made considering its pedigree. One thing's for sure, there hasn't been anything quite like it before or since. Can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts. Sorry. Matthew Caldwell says, amazing and batshit crazy. Love Bloodbeat. Okay. Over on Instagram, Dawn of the Discs says, Bloodbeat is easily one of my favorite 80s slasher films. I love all these regional oddities that Vinegar Syndrome puts out. Great setting and quite possibly the weirdest antagonist ever featured in a slasher film. There's a lot of hokey stuff in this one, but overall, it's easy to overlook. Fun, well-made slasher. Riley Rott says, I actually love this movie. It's so goddamn weird. I own the Blu-ray now, and I try to watch it around Christmas time. And on Twitter, Bill Hollister says, if Fabrice A. Zeffiratos' goal was to make the weirdest slasher movie of all time, he succeeded. I don't even think he set out to make a slasher movie. This movie is filled with endless, inappropriate music and even worse artwork. I cheered on the samurai to dispatch the cast of unlikable characters. My least favorite being the guy who kept his hunting cap on while making his wife get things for him. I have a feeling even Erik would kick him out of bed. What do you think, Erik?
Yeah, I would.
Okay. The only way this...
I am craving orange juice at the moment after talking about it.
he goes on to say, the only way this feels like an 80s slasher is that it teaches us that premarital sex and flicking the bean will result in you causing a samurai to come to life in rural Wisconsin. Keep up the excellent work, gents. May I suggest an episode devoted to the urban legend films? And let's see, Travis says, I guess I need to check this out. I've never heard of it. And that is all the feedback we have. And that's quite a lot of feedback for this film.
Yeah, well, thank you for writing in. It's always good to hear from you. And this is how to get in contact with the show. If I've got it to... here we go.
The content of this podcast was provided by Justin, Joseph, Erik, and Nathan. If you enjoy our show and are willing to provide a donation, please consider becoming a Patreon subscriber at patreon.com/The Hysteria Continues. Your monetary kindness keeps the show on the air, and in return, you'll have access to exclusive content not released elsewhere. Also, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter to stay up to date on all of our future shows and Blu-ray commentary releases. For general feedback, our email address is thehysteriacontinues@gmail.com.
Yeah, so I think
I need to redo that because we're on Instagram now. So
okay.
Plus, I don't know. I'm just tired of that one.
Time to update the music.
But well, thank you for all our Patreon supporters, and we do have some exciting things coming up for you in October.
Oh,
so don't we?
Yes, we got some good stuff coming.
Yeah, so we've got we announced it last time, didn't we? I think we've got Amateurville 2. Eric's
Yes.
pick, and also top 3 scariest moments in horror movies. So coming up, and we are probably going to be doing some non-horror picks for the Patreon as well. So just to go completely
It's like a
off-piste,
one-time
it's a one-time
sort of thing.
only thing, but I think they will be horrific in their own way. Certainly a couple of the picks at least. So, but thank you for everyone who's supports the show in that way. And say,
Nathan, do you have an after the credits?
Yes,
I didn't really think of one for this only because I just feel like this is it. Like, I don't think you could improve upon this movie.
I think after the credits, someone wakes up and we realize, hey, it really was a dream.
There you go. I don't think we could do any better than that, unless they made a Bloodbeat 2 beating off. And then that could be your samurai.
There we go. He beats off
yeah.
with the sword.
Very good, very
So
good.
yeah, that's my after the credits. Bloodbeat 2 beating off.
Well,
Okay.
that leads us nicely into this.
It's my joke of the week. It's so great and fantastic.
So the thing with Bloodbeat is that it's really vague in the film as to whether it's me who's the killer or if it's Dr. Loomis. But one thing is for certain, it's definitely either Sam or I.
I liked it. Eric.
Thank you.
Yes, I think you, because you did that at the last minute, didn't you?
I did, which shows how amazing I am.
So I like the fact that you snatched the victory from the jaws of defeat. No, it's the other way around. Snatched defeat from the jaws of victory.
Jaws of victory.
Yes.
Boo.
Boo. No, well done. Well done. Anyway, it's always good you can get one up in time.
Mm-hmm.
So that was Bloodbeat. And what are we covering next time?
Well, here's the thing. I have like 4 or 5 Alishan picks I really need to get to, but I'm going to save them because there's one movie that people keep asking us about, and I'm surprised we haven't covered it. So next we're going to cover Urban Legend.
Okay.
Oh,
right.
fun.
And also there's a Scream Factory, a brand new release coming out of that, isn't there? So it's quite timely. And that would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that would be a good sort of Halloween-y style pick as well, wouldn't it? I think.
Well, it'll be in November, I believe. But
Okay, well, a post-Halloween.
It's going to be fun. I think it's about time we got to those movies.
Excellent. Okay. Well, no, fantastic. Well, that will be one to look forward to, and also it'll be 20th anniversary, won't it? Because that came in '98. So all good. So, a bit of a short one this time, but the story of Eric's life. But sorry,
Hey, just to let everyone know, Eric absolutely blew me away on that cutting class commentary at the end there. That was very cerebral, Eric.
Yes.
And to find out what we're talking about, please buy the disc.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, okay, right. And we also have another disc coming out on another label, which we can't talk about just yet because I don't think it's been announced. But as soon as we can, we shall let you know what it is.
Well, one of them has been announced. Bloody Birthday was announced, so we're doing that for Arrow.
Which is going to
Can we announce the commentary we're doing on the Old Federal Massacre too?
I guess we just did.
It's coming up. It's on a new label.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And lastly is just a little plug, not like the ones Eric uses, but my book, the Teenage Slasher Movie book, which has been renamed as that, which was the Slasher Movie book, aka Teenage Wasteland. So it's got more AKAs now than, I don't know, sort of a Mexican slasher movie, is out. Came out a few last week, and it seems to be selling quite well. So if you haven't got your copy, because I know they're going for silly money, some of the other...
It's the Island of Blood of slasher movie books.
Well, it is rather, yes.
Yeah, because it has like 10 titles.
But it's coming, yes. So it's brings the subgenre up to date from 2010 up to today. Well, Halloween with Jamie Lee Curtis, the new version. So yeah, please do buy it, and I will love you long time. So I think that's all from us this time, isn't it? Because we've had a double ender. It's been a double ender this time, hasn't it, Eric? Because we've just done the commentary on this, so it is getting quite late into the evening. So Eric has to go and lock himself away and keep his hands above the covers because you never know what might happen.
I need a shower. I'm just.
Well,
I need to go take some headache medicine.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, I just need to go to bed.
I got some headache medicine, Nathan, that I'm going to take after I take a shower.
That's just the supplement for me for the headache medicine.
Right. Okay. Well, anyway, we'll leave Sid and
Looking
Nancy.
forward to Urban Legend. It's going to be so fun.
Yeah. Well, Eric and me will leave you, Sid and Nancy, to get on with your evening. And we shall sign off. And what are we playing out with, Eric?
We're playing out with a song by one of my favorite bands, The Beat, also known as The English Beat to our American friends. And it's a song called Two Swords, because swords.
I love English Beat. Great choice.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. Well, we'll catch you next time on Hysteria Continues, when we'll be going to Pendleton College, and we'll be running away from a big chopper. So, see you next time. Say goodbye to the good people.
Bye.
Bye, good people.
Bye. Goodbye. Bloodbeat.